I think that perhaps we can gradually start this workshop. So Hannu, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you so much. And you are all very warmly welcome to this workshop today. It's nice to see so many of you here. If you allow me, I would like to tell a little bit on the project that is behind this workshop and the series of workshops that we have had. I noticed that there are familiar names, so there might be some repetition for some of you, but anyway, I would like to show you only the website of the project. So my name is Hannu Salmi, and I'm the PI of the University of Turku group of this project, Sustainable, Usable and Visible Digital Cultural Heritage, Twinning for Excellence, DIGHT-Net. And this is an EU-funded Horizon project from a particular twinning funding scheme. And one of the ideas here is try to conduct collaborative research, particularly for advancing digital cultural heritage studies at Tallinn University. And this happens in partnership with 3 other universities, University of Bologna from Italy and University of Amsterdam from the Netherlands, and then University of Turku from Finland. So we are doing several aspects, several tasks at the same time. So we are like supporting Tallinn in their effort to start a digital cultural heritage research hub, but at the same time we are twinning 2 archives together. The other one is the archive of Umberto Eco in Bologna, and the other one is the archive of Juri Lotman in Tallinn. So we would like to bring these major figures in the humanities together, and particularly we will digitize Juri Lotman's collection within the project and also publish a prototype of a digital archive in the coming years. So that's the main idea behind the whole project. And I would like to invite you to have a look on our website. There is more information on what we do. You can find the people that are involved and also our events and publications and resources and so on. And Mila and we come from the Turku team, and our task here is to organize online workshops that support the project and bring together people that work on similar themes. And if you go to the website, you can see the list of events. We have already organized a couple of workshops online, and now we are here discussing a very essential issue in the whole field, digital and ecological sustainability of cultural heritage. That's the theme today. And we will continue these online workshops in the fall. We discuss representing data and information in digital archives in September, and memory communities and cultural heritage in November. And we also have twin lectures on gender and equality issues. We already had one in the spring, and the next one will be in October on gender intersectionality and inclusion. So you are very warmly welcome to all these events later this year. But this is in brief where we come from and what's the idea behind the project that organizes this event. I will keep my opening words very brief. So very warmly welcome to this event, both our speakers and also the audience. So welcome all.
Thank you so much, Hannu. I also wish to warmly welcome you all to this workshop today. As Hannu mentioned, today we are going to talk about sustainability in relation to digital cultural heritage. And as the original idea for this workshop came when I was kind of thinking about digital cultural heritage and how usually the first assumption with digitality is that it is somehow detached from materialities. Although when we think about it more, there are obviously some very important material-like entanglements with digitality that bring in very important issues related to sustainability. On the one hand, there are these issues of preservation and maintenance of digital materials that are often either they become old-dated or old-dated formats very easily, and they are fragile in that sense. And on the other hand, we use electricity and all these devices, computers and tablets and so on, to access digital cultural heritage, which of course brings in very important questions of ecological sustainability and how can we actually, in today's climate change crisis situations, how should we actually approach these matters and so on. So I'm extremely delighted to host today's workshop, and we have two excellent speakers today, Evangelia Paschalidou and Ulf Preuss. And so today's workshop is organized in such manner that first our speakers, both of them give approximately 30 minutes presentations, which are followed by brief Q&A sessions. And in the end, we will have a moment for a brief panel discussion where we hope to bring these two approaches together, and we will see where it leads us. I'm at least very excited. This is a new topic for me, and I'm sure that I will learn a lot today. So I will now first introduce our first speaker, who is Evangelia Paschalidou, who is the chair of the Sustainability Practice Task Force within the Climate Action Community of Europeana Initiative, where she leads the survey and report titled Pathways for Regenerative Cultural Heritage. Evangelia's work focuses on the environmental sustainability of the ICT infrastructure used in the digital preservation processes of cultural heritage. She holds a Bachelor in Law, a MA in Intellectual Property and Environmental Law, and a Master of Science in Environmental Economics. And in her latest research, she explores sustainable service management, sustainable design of digital services, and value co-creation within the service ecosystems of a digital cultural heritage. And Evangelia's title today is Europeana Climate Action Community Insights. What do the digital preservation processes of EU cultural heritage organizations unveil on their sustainability? The floor is yours, Evangelia.
Thank you, Mila, for the warm welcome, and everyone here attending. It's an honor for me representing the task force and the Climate Action Community of Europeana. And I will like to share my screen with you. Give you like a brief introduction into this deeply interdisciplinary subject of today's workshop. My title is focusing on the insights of our latest report set to be released end of May. Unfortunately, I was planning to have it ready today already and to share it with you, but you're more than welcome to contact me via email if you want to get a let's say, view of the finalized work. So here is, this is one of my favorite digital pictures from Europeana. It's the welcoming picture of our task force's website. And actually, it's the Greenwald Glacier. This picture was taken in 1880. And it's interesting to see how digital cultural heritage can serve, let's say, as a scientific evidence of climate change, since this glacier has disappeared since early 2000s. So yeah, that's another way to approach this interdisciplinarity maybe of such a research. I will not touch upon this. I will stay in the technicalities, and here is the agenda of today. First, I would like to walk you through quickly the Europeana CAC and our task force. Then I would like to introduce the issue with the sub-elements. I will walk you quickly through some highlights, as I call them, the reality check, comparing to the issue from the TF survey. Some digital preservation practices, again from the survey. However, it will be enriched with some recommendations. The same goes for the circular hardware, and I will sum up with some critical observations and conclusions. Please feel free to interrupt me along the presentation. If you have any questions, simply just raise your hand or just open your microphone and speak up. Yes, this is, let's say, an overview of the background of our community and task force. The Europeana initiative builds upon a network of national, thematic, and domain aggregators, which enable cultural heritage institutions to share their content with Europeana.eu and open it up to new audiences. The Europeana Network Association is one of the three pillars of the initiative, and it's a community of more than 2,000 cultural heritage professionals committed to promoting and strengthening the Europeana initiative and disseminating its activities. In this context, we exchange knowledge, expertise, and best practices through 7 special interest communities, one of which is the Climate Action Community. In the CAC, the Climate Action Community, we are, first of all, we're professionals, researchers, educators, and activists working in the field of digital cultural heritage. And we are acknowledging that the climate change is an emergency. Essentially, it is a crisis, and as such, cooperative action and, as I said, interdisciplinary perspectives need to be adopted in order to address it. So in the community, we're building upon the European Climate Action Manifesto, and we aim for wider systemic change within our organizations and networks. Along with trying to raise climate awareness in the digital cultural heritage sector, we're striving to grow expertise on how the digital transformation of the cultural heritage sector can reduce its own climate footprint and contribute to positive climate action. In the background of policies such as the European Green Deal or the Europe's digital decade or the common European data space, we realized that we needed tangible data and a scanning essentially of the current practices followed by cultural heritage institutions. And for this reason, we kicked off the Sustainability Practice Task Force within the Climate Action Community, with the main purpose to carry out a survey and build upon the findings of this survey trying to systematically understand environmental sustainability, and essentially to elaborate on environmentally sustainable and regenerative working practices. That was our main focus. Therefore, we analyzed and compiled the survey input into a report that will be accompanied by a brief policy recommendations. And we hope that we will kick off a community of practitioners upon the release of the report that will support the implementation of the findings and the recommendations. So quickly to discuss the survey, to have an idea of the survey identity, we were fortunate enough to have a rich data input of 180 respondents coming from 24 EU countries. We also got 6 replies from other countries globally. The survey was made up of 32 questions in total, aiming to provide sufficient data to create a complete picture of both the contextual, the sector related factors and the ad hoc research objects. Last July, we released the interim report that I will share with you later in the chat box. We have finalized the in-depth case study interviews with cultural heritage institutions. And as I said, we are aiming for late May, early June, probably through the Europeana's newsletter, to release the final report that will also be extensively presented in the Europeana conference in Warsaw in, I think 11th of June, 2025. So it was interesting for us to see that half of the respondents answered on behalf of their organizations, and the other half shared their own individual, like personal views on the topic. And this could be illustrate the high level of personal interest in digital sustainability in the cultural heritage sector. The most responses came from libraries, academic and academic research institutions almost equally were leading, followed by museums. Responses also revealed that these were the sectors that most comprehensive analysis and actions regarding climate change and sustainability were undertaken. Of course, this someone can comment that it definitely has to do, of course, with our survey sample, and we acknowledge that in terms of sharing the survey in the first place via the Europeana's channels, and the majority of the organizations collaborating with Europeana are big academic libraries, institutions, and museums. And we saw that, let's say, we saw that smaller cultural heritage institutions were not coming so strong with taking the survey. So the purpose, yes, of course, the purpose was to, as I said before, to understand systematically the environmental sustainability of the digital preservation practices taken up by cultural heritage institutions in order to mitigate the broader sector's environmental impact in view of the dire climate and environmental state. And I would like to share with you my main conceptualization of this paradox. So we have cultural heritage standing for all tangible, intangible, cultural and natural heritage. Through cultural heritage, communities and humanity in general are being connected to past generations' knowledge, human experience, enabling collective memory and identity building. And this is why the conversion of physical objects of cultural heritage into digital form and their continuous digital preservation has been a common practice and a prioritization riddle for cultural heritage institutions. However, digital preservation is heavily relying on the use of information and communication technology. ICT in short, that comes with its own negative environmental impact, stemming from its raw material and high energy demands. And this impacts with their turn are feeding back to the continuous increase of the global temperature to unprecedented average heights. At least last year, 2024, was the warmest in record, and the extreme climate change phenomena posing a risk to climate heritage sites and artifacts in the first place. So we can also observe this negative, as you see, feedback loop being drawn between these elements and processes, where the end is feeding back to the cause and vice versa. And this environmental materiality of our digital processes needs to be made tangible. As Keith Pendergrass, who is an archivist in the Harvard Business School library, put it, the environmental cost of our digital preservation activities remains largely invisible to most cultural heritage professionals, yet it grows more substantial each year. And that's, I think, was the point Mila was highlighting in the beginning of the introduction of today's workshop. And that's also the issue that I would like to draw some light with my presentation today. So we can see that we have observed examples, let's say, of Venice being this cultural heritage at risk, and of all the human efforts to deter it by designing seawalls and floodgates. But even if global mean temperature remains the same, 6% of UNESCO's cultural heritage sites globally will be flooded. Apart from cultural heritage or natural sites, climate events of extreme intensity or frequency, like heat waves, storms, droughts, and floods, are affecting not only cultural heritage buildings and sites and objects, but cultural practices and traditions of the displaced communities as well. With the UN reporting that climate hazards are helping right now to double the number of displaced people to 120 million, we can realize the size of what is the need will be presented in the future. So in the face of this reality, digitization, digital preservation processes have gained, of course, a lot of interest, greatly accelerated by the pandemic, and the need for remote access to digital cultural heritage. This has helped the total digital cultural heritage to count to almost the 6% of the data stored at data centers globally. And this, of course, raises exponentially. That links to the latest information from IPCC that many of the impacts of global warming will simply be irreversible. We might have still, as humanity, a brief window of time to act and to avoid the very worst impacts. However, over 40% of the world's population are highly vulnerable to the climate phenomena. Currently, we are standing at 1.45 degrees Celsius warming as of 2024, and we are heading to 1.5, and this is going to be unavoidable. I would like to remind you that 1.5 degrees Celsius was the target of the Paris Agreement, maybe how to put it, the optimistic scenario. Even if we halt the temperatures rising at 15 to 30 centimeters of global average sea level rise, 15 to 30 centimeters of global average sea level rise by 2050. At 2 degrees Celsius of warming consistent with the Paris Agreement, the upper limit, would see lower sea level rise, most likely about half a meter by 2100. If countries continue on their current paths with greenhouse gas emissions, it's more likely to bring 3 to 4 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100, and the planet will be looking at a most likely sea level rise of about 70 centimeters. So hitting the tipping points of triggering feedback loops in the climate systems like permafrost thawing, which will release additional greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. It would make it a lot more difficult, almost impossible to get back below the 1.5 degrees Celsius. So adapting to the climate crisis is more than a scientific issue and a social issue. IPCC reports, the last report since it was completed in 2024, discusses of the need of a resilient, sustainable world with fundamental changes to society functionings, including changes to underlying values, worldviews, ideologies, social structures, political and economic systems, and of course, power relationships. In relation to these facts, the future of ICT's energy consumption is expected to reach 13% of the global energy consumption, while the data traffic surpassed last year the 149 zettabytes. But what do we mean by ICT use in digital preservation? So we are essentially discussing all the infrastructure network for safe storage, sharing and providing access may be extended to the end user or not. And we are discussing both software and hardware. Adopting more specifically, it can include data centers, cables, satellites, laptops, servers, even my smartphone, if we're discussing end users. By adopting a life cycle approach to the environmental impacts, the most impactful phase is during the production, where mining and refining of raw materials is quite energy intensive. It most usually concerns scarce minerals and metals like cobalt, like silver, lithium, indium, tantalum, gold, etc. Or fossil fuel-based plastics, while the extraction processes are based, of course, on chemicals use. In the use phase, we are mainly discussing energy demand, while lastly, in the end-of-life states, is a rather harmful one due to the landfilling or incineration of e-waste and the resulting emissions, especially if we consider that last year, only 22.3% of the e-waste reported globally to get recycled in proper facilities, recycling facilities. We are discussing for anything but a negligible contribution to environmental degradation. And yet the rest is to be dismantled informally with its own cost that we will see later on. So, sorry. So what we really need to understand, as we have stressed out already from our today's discussion, is that the materiality of digitalization comes with a lot of embedded costs, with hidden data, we call them dark data, and these costs, unfortunately, are both environmental and social. And please let me quote a phrase from our report, where Thomas Hecker observes already almost 20 years ago in his research on academic libraries, but we are not in a sustainable transition from physical formats to digital formats. And this statement exactly underscores the material reality of digital infrastructure that stems from all the energy demand and scarce mineral use. And a way to understand exactly the data and the embedded costs is to see that EU data centers are estimated last year to consume roughly 3% of the continent's total energy generation. That is energy diverted essentially from other uses, or that is produced in surplus. A pressing concern for cultural heritage institutions is the growing prevalence of dark data, that is information collected but never really used or analyzed. And there is a research from Veritas Technologies estimating that up to 54% of all data stored by organizations are dark data falling into this category, and they are consuming energy and resources essentially without delivering any tangible value. And they are discussing, I think, a 16% to be of, let's say, critical business data of all the data an organization is preserving. And of course, it's yet to be seen how the AI tools adoption and use will play into this, let's say, embedded energy consumption, not directly observed, because we are still unsure whether increase in energy efficiency of these tools or increase in efficiencies due to the use of these tools will balance it out. However, the most tragic ones are the social costs, if we can say so, from the use of scarce minerals. We have all observed the human rights violations in mineral-rich regions under conflict. The most recent example is the Republic of Congo, I think in early 2025, that supplies around 70% of the world's cobalt. And approximately 65% of e-waste is shipped to countries of Global South, lacking proper recycling infrastructure and leading to health, environmental, and social degradation while dismantling them. And exactly, I mean, in this whole background of the issue, it was critical for us to understand how organizations are grasping digital sustainability. So 78% of the organizations acknowledge the importance of environmental sustainability. However, only 42% of them have formalized this commitment in their official policies, strategies, or reporting. Among the respondents, the majority are, again, are understanding, or they were familiarized with the notion of sustainability through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. However, we are here in today's workshop, we are mostly focusing on ecological and social, of course, sustainability. And it was really interesting for us to observe that there was a variation in the approach depending on institution type and size, meaning that larger institutions are twice as likely to have formal environmental policies. Again, going back to our survey sample, this might have to do something. This might have to do something with our sampling, meaning having bigger organizations taking up the questionnaire. Museums and libraries, as I pointed before, are leading in policy adoption, and archives and smaller cultural organizations were left behind, with only 31% reporting formal commitments. It's And again, it's interesting to see that organizations were understanding sustainability in a different way, because when asked about their digital carbon footprinting, only 14% of institutions track their carbon footprint, meaning the footprint of the digital services that accounts for the ICT energy consumption, even the end user device usage, the embodied carbon, as we said, that can count up to 70 or 80% of total embedded carbon. And of course, the data traffic, meaning the transmission of data. And we see that it's easier for them to focus on highly visible areas, meaning the built environment of their sites, of course, waste management, recycling, water usage, you can, as you can see in the graph. And for this reason, it was unavoidable to pose the question to save or not to save, or what is defined as acceptable loss to the organizations. So the widespread availability of cloud storage and cheap hard drives since the early 2010s has created what we call the save everything syndrome. This problem stems from the misconception that digital storage is unlimited. It's easy to access and it's inexpensive. Again, comparing to what it used to be before that date. Storage costs have significantly decreased over the past years, and mostly due to the advancements of technologies like lithium batteries, while storage capacities have dramatically increased. And this trend has created a false sense of abundance, influencing how organizations approach preservation decisions in the first place and how they allocate resources. For example, again, dark data. Dark data was really, in this context, it was really easy to get out of hand for the organizations. They usually find themselves maintaining an expanding amount of unused or underutilized digital assets and infrastructure, often due to not having clear policies in place for assessment or decommissioning, as we will see in the continue. And however, this digital waste is easier to manage. What gets to be digitized and how we do this content selection, or what content selection criteria we adopt, we found it was more, let's say, challenging for the organizations. The wide range of selection methods indicates that many organizations operate without a unified strategy for choosing what to digitize, which may potentially contribute to inefficient use of resources and the accumulation of, again, of dark data. It was really interesting to see that a simple choice between organizations mainly used PDF and JPEG formats, and a simple, let's say, optimization choice to shift from a JPEG to a JPEG XL can reduce a file size from 20 to 60%, depending on the quality we are aiming. When implemented across institutions, these small savings multiply exponentially in a larger scale, let's say like Europeana's collection that is more than, I think, 35 million pictures. We can understand what are the savings we are discussing here. And it was also interesting to see that critically, when asked whether the same preservation quality and user satisfaction could be achieved using formats with smaller storage demands, and almost 30% and more than 30% said yes. However, and almost 45% had no idea. And this huge uncertainty reveals a concerning knowledge gap. about format efficiency and suggesting many preservation decisions are made without considering storage optimization or environmental impact. Yes, of course, then it was also along the same lines. It was interesting to see that really small percentages, 16 or 17% of the respondents are adhering to standardized to standards of digitization, like the FAIR, the findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data, or to standard project-based digitization rules. In this respect, the existence of digital duplicates in their collections might connect to the set of the safety standards adopting consciously or not. So again, we're discussing issues of interoperability and preservation quality. Without, though, clear guidelines for when and how to retire digital assets, a lot of organizations keep everything indefinitely, and this creates institutional collections filled with rarely accessed files, multiple copies of the same content, and servers that consume energy while serving a little purpose. That being said, the majority of the respondents have not implemented tiered approaches to digital preservation, meaning to allocate resources preservation resources, according to the value and uniqueness of materials preserved. And a similar percentage do not even run fixed tie checks. For instance, it's easy to easily adopt a unified redundancy practice. We see that almost 86% of the organizations retain up to 3 safety copies without really considering a tiered approach according to the value of these assets. In this respect, in the report, we have come up with some suggestions of what a tiered approach could look like. You can see in the graph on the side, the first tier, second tier, and third tier according to the value of the assets. And another really interesting insight was that only 5 out of all the respondent institutions were considering the life cycle environmental impacts of the digital media using to preserve their collections and digital assets. So coming closer to the end of the presentation, discussing hardware circularity. It's easy to see from the responses that recycling has gained widespread adoption, comparing to the repairability and sustainable procurement. And I've set them up this way following the waste hierarchy suggested by the European Waste Management Directive. So sustainable procurement remains significantly underrepresented, even the tremendous potential for both environmental and financial benefits. Prioritizing modular hardware in procurement and ensuring access to spare parts can add 2 to 3 years to electronic devices life cycle, supporting circular economy principles and aligning with the EU's right to repair directive that was passed by the Parliament, in 2024, and it awaits to be approved by the Parliament. It's that will promote repair-friendly designs to combat plant obsolescence. Of course, there's an untapped potential lying in repairability, as seen in the research paper From Waste to Resource, that conducted a comprehensive analysis of over 117,000 second-hand drives and discovered that nearly 87% could be successfully sanitized and reused. So that is further, let's say, a higher level of management of e-waste than recycling. And going back to the repairability directive, through it, repair is becoming an obligation. Repairability scores provide standardized metrics quantifying how easily devices can be disassembled and repaired and maintained. And I think producers in France are already using this kind of inventory, so that enabling consumers to make an informed choice before choosing, before getting a new product, let's say, in use. It has a great potential to reduce embodied carbon emissions, and most importantly, connected back to the social impacts, building resilience against supply chain and social solidarity. And of course, there was also a last observation about creating, let's say, a community around the engagement in repair practices, as we have seen mainly in Northern Europe countries. And I think with this one, I would just like to make, oops, I'm so sorry. I will correct it in my final slide deck. I'm missing a small emoticon. So I would just like to make some observations on how this on how these issues or maybe how change can be infused on all different levels, as we have seen on a personal, organizational and policy level. Of course, there is like a whole chapter, a super detailed one in the report, analyzing each one of them. And we have stressed on the personal level the advocacy of climate conscious practices within one's organization. Or as a simply, let's say, example, I could put the reviewing of someone's own digital image collections, to organize a green team or a working group within an organization. This is a successful case study that we have seen happening in the National Library of Finland. And of course, knowledge and experience sharing and staff training. On an organizational level, these actions can be taken higher with establishing comprehensive data governance policies and exploring green IT and computing communities where they are developing their own open source software. Integrate, of course, local communities as essential stakeholders. There is another whole chapter in the report discussing the community as a stakeholder and the community engagement. And of course, always measure, document, and communicate someone's organization's progress transparently. There is a whole separate list of policies, like relevant EU policies that an organization should monitor, as well as regulations. And even, let's say, for soft policies, it's something that they can keep in mind to, let's say, stay ahead of the regulations to come in the future, as we saw happening with the right to repair. I won't go into detail into the policies. I have taken too much of my time. And I think, yes, in this point, oh, here it is. In this point, I would like to thank you for your attention. And I would very much like to open up to a discussion for the remainder of the time.
Thank you so much, Evangelia. Amazing work and so much very important information that you shared with us. And I can't wait to read your report, because I think that there are a lot of very important points there. So we have now approximately 7 minutes for discussion. So if anyone wishes, you can either just raise your hand and ask your question, or you can also use the chat if you prefer to post your questions or comments for Evangelia.
Also, I would very much like to thank you, Marco, for keeping up with the links and posting them on the chat. Hello. Marco is the chair of the Climate Action Community, and he's behind all the policy recommendations and the policy research.
Okay,
so
great.
Questions are going to Marco as well.
Thank you. Actually, maybe I can start because if you think about a kind of low-resourced library or archive, or a smaller research group who is or a research project that is digitizing some materials, like for instance in our case we have this project of digitizing Juri Lotman's archive. So in addition to reading your report, what would be your kind of advice how to actually start thinking about this kind of ecological sustainability, both in sense of kind of like how can we actually measure the impact, different kinds of impacts that we are causing in relation to the infrastructure that we are using, maybe the cloud storage, and how much energy is consumed when our kind of digitized materials are being used. And you emphasized this importance of dark data, which I think it was very important, and I think that it was also new information to me. So do you think that is it kind of like important to pay particular attention to the dark data, or are there also other choices that should be made in relation to different infrastructures or things like that? So basically my question is how to start if you don't know anything, and kind of what are the most important things to start to think about?
Yes, that has always been my personal question, where to start in general with all issues regarding the climate emergency we are experiencing the past decades. More intensely now. But if I could put it in simply one just line, it would be to communicate. I do feel like communication among the different professionals, even in a small scale institution or a small scale digitalization program, is the key, because we see how, especially this issue, how many different professionals are involved, how many different, from different departments, different understandings, even different language is playing its role. I might mean sustainability in a different way that you understand it, let's say, as the janitor of the facility, of the building. So I think we need to, without overburdening ourselves with expectations, we can start small with simple steps by, let's say, holding informal sustainability working group meetings and even creating a common language in the first place. And then gradually we will see, and I'm explaining the example, like the real life example of the Finnish Heritage Agency and the National Library of Finland. And this is how they started. They started bottom up from individuals' own initiatives that were taken up to the strategic or organizational, let's say, level, and now they are properly reporting their sustainability digitization program. So I found this personally really inspirational because I have observed it from its beginning, and along with communication, I would always, regarding to your other question, regarding the how are we measuring, how are we, keeping track of the actual demands, energy demands or materials. I would say that even if we don't have access to the hard numbers, let's say if we are not outsourcing our processes and we don't ask for such data from our providers, if we are doing it in-house, it's relatively more easier. We can like just adapt the energy meters, and we can of course always use relevant models to do so. Also for my personal life, my basic principle is following the waste hierarchy and going for prevention. And when we can avoid to produce something in the first place, we are avoiding it. And this is the whole, let's say, philosophy, the eco-sufficiency philosophy behind managing such processes. Doing what is necessary and what is meaningful, and always keeping in mind to provide meaningful preservation for materials according to their value and in the broader context of the resources we have available, and keeping, of course, the finity of the resources in mind as well, because we live in a finite planet, and some resources, especially in the case of scarce minerals, we see it a lot. Yeah, it's really rare to put it this way. I mean, people are now, planning to, I don't know, colonize other planets and stars in search of such minerals. I mean, this is how rare they are. I don't know if Marco wants to add something.
Hello, everyone. First of all, let me tell you how much work went into this report, especially Eva worked so much, and we are so happy that she was leading this. And I think that the moments when you will have the final PDF, it will be quite an interesting thing, an interesting read. And every time that we talk about bottom-up approaches, I think about the top part, like the policies that are helping and should support the bottom-up approach of these things, because while realizing the report and writing it, we always thought that the idea that roots and rooting these kind of strategies in institutional practices, organizational practices, was pretty central. And then whenever we talk about policies, we think, okay, how can policies help? So it's about frameworks, it's about giving ready-to-use toolkits in order to to build your green strategy inside your institution, and also thinking about this data, dark data, and it's also the question of why are you digitizing that specific cultural heritage content. And by asking simply the question why, what should be the purpose? It's for educational purposes. It's going to be for reuse and innovation in the field of preservation of cultural heritage. Then you understand the type of quality and the type of data that you need. And in this, we think that the European Union and member states could help by creating a framework that could help facilitate. Now we know that digitization projects are usually stemming from national levels and not directly from the EU, but the EU can guide in that. So that's why at the end of the report, there are 3 concrete policy recommendations about mitigation and understanding the principle. That's it from my end.
Thank you so much. I can see that Hembo Pagi has raised his hand. Hembo, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I have actually many questions, but maybe my main question is like the communication. What is the best way to communicate to consume less? As everybody knows that our economic kind of capitalist system, we are encouraged to consume more and more, and that's how our economy works these days. So when we tell people to track how much energy they use, or like how many files they store, or what format they store it, some way I think it's overwhelming for many people, and therefore I think it needs to come from sometimes I think it's good from bottom up, but from top down, where the systems, as you pointed out, Marco, that the tools or policies prepared for users, as it's, I think, too much to handle for most of the people. So yeah, maybe my main question at this point is the communications. Like what is the main aim of not main aim, the main focus of the communication? As like today, most of the discussion or the presentation was all those kind of technical and very kind of details, like how the ICT infrastructure uses the energy and so on. Most people, they don't need it. They don't have a capacity to either understand it or just enough resources, mental resources to process it. So how do we communicate in a simple way that we need to do things differently? Thank you.
Marco, I'm going first, and then if you want to add something. First of all, thank you, Hembo, for the very to the point question, because of course everything comes down to let's say the main recipient of of a policy or of a strategy or of a service design, and in this case are, as you said, the end users. I would say that up to a certain extent, the aim is such decisions to already be designed into the service architecture, so that the end user will be already presented with, let's say, some default choices. But of course, where we see the greater gains of environmental, let's say, costs that we are saving, again, in this specific situation we're discussing, is during the during the phases where the end user is coming in to make a decision in what format they will download a digital asset from an interface, how long they will be, roaming around on a website. Or in the first place, what kind of what kind of cultural heritage they will ask or point to get digitized. So in all these cases, because this is actually the subject of my current research in my PhD, how we are co-creating such value with the end user. And not biased at all, but I would be coming from my current understanding, that is to have the end user on board in the decision making process and make them kind of, let's say, make them internalize this process, not viewing it as something external, that they are not engaged enough, but having a rather, let's say, personal connection of the service in the first place, and putting the end user in the center of the decision-making process. And of course, I'm not sure whether I'm communicating again, communication, whether I'm communicating what I'm trying to say here, but it's making the user understand the role, the, let's say, significant role it can play, that they can play in co-creating this value. I don't know if I have answered your question. But as you said, it's definitely a matter of top-down cultural, I would say, education of the users in general to have to make this end goal of enough digitalization their own personal objective as well. Enough digitalization or enough data use in general in all aspects of life, of course, not just in cultural heritage institutions. Yes, Marta.
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I think that it's really interesting what you're saying, because we're constantly overwhelmed with, yes, to make less impact, have less impact in your food consumption. You have to buy local and do this and do that, when we know that the most important thing that you can do to lessen your impact on food is eat less meat or eat no meat. Okay, so that we need the main message, and I completely agree with you. And I think that when we go into let's say institutions and organizations that are on the ground and that are doing these kind of things, the first thing that we want is to let them know about this, because that's the understanding the topic and knowing that they can do something. And then the moment they have the understanding of what's going on and the fact that there is a whole ecosystem, then they can put some effort in it. They can start a green team. They can start think about it, about these kind of issues. Eva was talking about it. And then when you try to think on the other side, you say, okay, how can we solve this by a top-down approach? When we talk with institutions, what we say is that you need to understand better the issue. You need to research the issue and understand the impacts of this of the ICT and digitization processes in the cultural heritage sector. You need to mitigate with that framework that I was talking about, creating ready-to-use policy framework and frameworks, and then you need to mobilize. And that's the most important part for me, because when we were writing, I remember in probably second or third chapter, we wrote this kind of transition, this kind of green transition in the ICT domain, it's not expensive per se in terms of changing database. There are solutions that are not expensive. What is expensive is skills and human resources that are allocated to do this. So what we need basically is to finance this kind of skills and human resource, sustainable skills in order to tackle this kind of issues inside at organizational level, and also human resources that are put into it. And I know, I mean, the point is that we're always on the look for more money and more funding to do these kind of things. But what we are advocating for is that part of the funding should go also to that, since it's an important topic, and since cultural heritage institutions and organizations can really do something.
Yeah, thank you. And I really agree what you said before, or I think you both mentioned like the main question, why we digitize. And as this is, I mean, I've been doing a digitization myself, helping museums. I've been doing development, software development. So I've been in a different kind of roles, and quite often this why question is not asked. So we want something which kind of one size fits all. So let's do the best what we can do in this moment. And obviously this means, I don't know, the biggest file size or whatever. But yeah, so the why question, I guess, is the main thing to ask, and why we preserve also like the physical archives as well. So there are lots of stuff we maybe don't need anymore, but we still keep it and we digitize them. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you for the questions and answers. Now it's time for us to have a brief break to stretch ourselves and prepare for the next super interesting talk. Thank you, Eva, for your excellent presentation. And now let's have a 15-minute break and let's reconvene past back here. And then we will start with Ulf Preuss's presentation. Thank you. All right, I think we can gradually continue. Everybody has stretched their legs and we are ready to go with the second super interesting talk by Ulf Preuss. Ulf was in the German Air Force for 14 years, including a 4-year tour of duty in the US. His main areas of work were accounting and human resources. From 2007 until 2012, he studied library management, BA, and information science, MA, at the University of Applied Sciences, Potsdam. He is currently head of the coordination office Brandenburg Digital at the University of Applied Sciences, Potsdam, Information Sciences Department, where he has been working since 2012. This office provides consultation services for cultural heritage institutions on behalf of the Ministry of Science, Research and Culture of German Federal State of Brandenburg. He is also a lecturer for various further education programs at the Freie Universität Berlin, Humboldt Universität zu Berlin, University of Applied Sciences Potsdam, and Donau-Universität Krems in Austria, in the fields of digitization, digital preservation, and digital presentation and preservation of cultural heritage. Today, the title of Ulf's presentation is Digital, in brackets, Cultural Heritage, Digital Archive, and Digital Preservation, different labels for the same concept, ? Ulf, the floor is yours now.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you in that workshop format that you have, and all the best for your project and for the future. so far. Yes, I am an information scientist. I'm not in informatics, so there's a main difference, and I have that certain a point of view when it comes to cultural heritage and to digital aspects of working with digital cultural heritage in that regard. So I'm trying to, oops. Oh. So I look at Mila. Is the presentation going? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, digital cultural heritage, digital archive and digital preservation, different labels for the same concept. And I choose this title because in my in my years in the field, I became aware that everybody has some other ideas about these labels or these concepts, and it is essential when you are going to develop an own digital collection or be part of a project or a bigger initiative, that you are or you should be able to understand these concepts as common as every other participants in within your project or in your initiatives, so that everybody speaks, so to speak, speaks the same language and have the same understanding of the things you do and the consequences thereof. And that's my starting point. And the pictures you see, we have a laboratory and a workshop area within our information science department. We have a digitization laboratory with different kinds of imaging systems, scanning systems. We have an archival workshop where the students can work with original archival materials of different types. And we have a research area for usability and with eye tracking systems and so forth. So we try to have the full scope of when it comes to cultural heritage items or collections, to give our students, they can study bachelor study programs for archival science, for library management, or library sciences, and information and data management. So that's the context of our research, and for that we have these different kinds of laboratory and workshop areas where they can try something out, so to speak. And they are very nice for some cooperation partners that give us their part of their collections for the students to use. So that's a give and take situation. All right. So my topics are, well, let us talk about analog and digital cultural heritage. Is it all the same? Or what are the differences? About labels and concepts in general, about who takes care of the cultural heritage, and how to take care of digital cultural heritage with sustainable methods, and a conclusion. And I think it goes well along with the first presentation, because Eva brought us some topics to attention, and I might intertwine them in some ways, I hope. Okay. I will not read everything here, but that is the definition of digital cultural heritage from the charter of the UNESCO, the Charter on Preservation of of Digital Heritage. There is one particular thing that is, of course, cultural heritage can have every form and can be of any context, basically, that the human mind could think of. So it's a universal approach where the heritage is coming from. But when we speak of digital cultural heritage, we have now the difference between digital born cultural heritage, so heritage that is or was produced as a digital resources. You might think about the nowadays production of movies, of audio and video material, or of digital art that is produced, yes, using just digital devices. On the other hand, we have digitized analog material. So we have the vast majority of our heritage so far is analog. That might be going to change, but in the moment, the vast majority in the collections of the cultural heritage institutions are analog material. And we are in a time where we try to give access to this material through digitization, but sometimes the digitization is more than just for access. It has other aspects as well, and I will talk about that later on. Here in the statement they are frequently ephemeral and require purposeful production, maintenance, and manage to be retained. And that is a core problem that was mentioned earlier, that we have digital collections and digital assets. And we live in a world with a very fast-paced development in technology, in various technology fields. So we have to tackle obsolescence of technology, of maintenance and refreshing of systems and the like. So it is a very problematic area that we are in. All right, but I was showing you that because we have some charters or some organizations that created some definitions and some general policies and approaches when it comes to definition of certain types of concepts on certain types of things. Just say that. So we don't have to create it in our own projects over and over again, you know. We have to, or we can, mostly we have to focus on what is important inside the project and use as many provided definitions, frameworks, policies or infrastructures that we can use. That is one step in terms of sustainability, that we use what is already there. And that goes for definitions as well. Okay, then let us talk about analog and digital cultural heritage, and in general, what makes an object a piece of cultural heritage. And that is the question. It might be easy, but it isn't in a way, because you have of course, you have in every country there are rules and regulations. You know, there is a law in Finland for your national archive, or in some countries there are rules mostly for archives. There are sometimes rules for libraries, for some general aspects, and the like. But it isn't. Yes, it's not that it is a given. The appraisal process is the most important process of all, because when you have to very carefully choose what you, as an institution or a archivist, a librarian, or a curator will collect, will take into your collection and into your custody. Because after the appraisal, or the appraisal is what makes an object a cultural heritage. With the label of cultural heritage comes responsibility. And that responsibility is not just I have it and I can show you, because cultural heritage, when we stay true to the label cultural heritage and not just a nice object with an historical context, then we have to assume that we are taking on the challenge of preserving that cultural heritage as long as it is in our possession and in our care. So be careful in the appraisal process, because there are so many things that we might like to take care of and might like to study and to work with, but we are just plain unable to deal with them later on. You know, we don't have the capacities on so many levels. So the appraisal process is very, very essential in order to create your collection. Then there is the collection itself, the change of custody from whether it is to bring it into a private collection or a public collection. Then you have the cataloging, and the cataloging is essential because without metadata, without proper cataloging, without the use of information systems, you don't have the means to access your collections yourself, and you will not be able to give access to your users locally or online or in whatever form. So cataloging is essential, and for that we have some international standards for archiving, for library, and for information data management. So please, whenever you are collecting or creating your own collection, please use standards for that process by any chance. So then you have the presentation. The presentation can be locally or nowadays online. And online, the problem is most archives don't have digital content. Most archives provide just informations about the collection itself. So just metadata about their collection. And that's okay, because there is that vast amount of collections inside archives that we cannot digitize everything just for access, you know. So you have to carefully select what you like to present and give access to in some way. You have the preservation, of course, and the preservation is on the, when you speak of cultural heritage, the preservation is always first and foremost of the original, you know, and it's the original and the originality that counts, and I come to that on later point. And of course, you have to provide it for your own and the research of external personal or interest communities. When we speak about cultural heritage, and it doesn't matter if it is analog or digital, then we speak about trustworthiness, in my opinion, because cultural heritage is not just an ordinary thing or an ordinary object or an ordinary concept. It is, that's why I showed you the quarter of the UNESCO. When we speak of cultural heritage, the public or the user presume that, like archives, that archives manage and preserve their archives in ways that they ensure their authenticity, their reliability, and their integrity and usability. And museums and libraries with cultural heritage, they have the same task. It is highly important that these essential trust or the trustworthiness is kept, because without the trustworthiness, we are not able to fulfill our task as cultural heritage institutions. Because when we see at the internet, or in general, information you can provide, everybody can provide information. Everybody can, or anybody can provide false or right information. It doesn't matter. In the internet, everybody can publish bring to public attention everything. When we are talking about cultural heritage and cultural heritage institutions, we have to assume that we are trustworthy, and that the people can rely on our data, on our information provided. And that isn't that easy when it comes to digital forms, because you have to document all the steps when it comes to digitization process. And you have to document everything in terms of preservation, in order to keep that trustworthiness, you know. And I have some examples following on. Okay. I can just briefly say that, or I have already said it. When you going to build a collection of digital heritage, then the selection process should be very carefully. We have to think about resources, human resources. We have to think about financial resources, and of course, we have to think about the ecological impacts of our work as well. Archivists, librarians, and curators, they have to carefully choose and identify materials and objects that they need for your purpose, for your task that they were given, or that they taking on in terms of a project, so to speak. And so that can then these collection building can be made from different angles, like from functionality, or from topic-wise, or from the creator or the provenance that the particular content is from, or the type or format of content that is collected. Like in audio, archive is or a archive on a certain person of interest. In literacy or in musician is focused on that topic, of course. Like you in your mentioned projects within the intertwining of the different archives of yours. So about analog and digital cultural heritage functions of digital representations. When we speak of digitization, then we have to think about, okay, what is the goal of digitization? What is the meaning and the purpose of the digitized object or of the representation? Because we have here a picture of a glass object from the 18th century. You can say, okay, we have digitized it. It is, and now we have a nice image or two images of it. We have digitized it, and now we can throw the original away because we have preserved it in a digital form. Of course not. I just like to make that point, that we have to carefully think about what kind of information we like to transform from analog to the digital format, because you have to carefully choose. You cannot have all information transformed from analog to digital. That isn't possible. You can describe the weight or the dimensions, but you cannot transform them. Yeah, they get lost. You have to think about, okay, I am a research project, so what kind of information do my researchers need in order to answer their research questions, you know? So you have a very certain and specific way of thinking about digitization when it comes to your archives in your project. So I think when you have scanned documents in your archives and books and diaries and letters and so forth, then you have a collection, a body of digital content, but that content or that collection is not cultural heritage in itself. The cultural heritage is the original archive, the original object. So you produce your own research data, raw data, and then you refine your data, implementing hopefully a research data management plan, maybe. You have created your own research environment, and you can you might think about getting the general users access to that digital content, or access to refined informations like the optical character recognition, when you extract the text from the letters, handwritten letters or so, then you can provide maybe this. But this text you provide is not the cultural heritage itself. It is a product of your work in your research project, but it's not the digital cultural heritage. When you think about this kind of example, then you know that if you have a scan, an image, or a 3D model, in many ways, most of that you don't throw away the original, because the original is your digital cultural cultural heritage, and you have the obligation to preserve the cultural heritage, because that is what trustworthiness is. Because a museum can always show the original. You know, that is trustworthiness. You can provide a digital presentation, but as a cultural heritage institution, you are able to provide the original, or you can at least document transparently how the process was made when you cannot in the future provide the original anymore because of decay or something. Yeah, but that is very important in terms of cultural heritage and digitization. So the focus is on digital access and use. Preservation is focused on the original objects for most parts. And that is very essential when we think about digital preservation. Digital preservation in the sense of digital archiving, preserving long-term, then you have to focus on other things, like in the second example. When you have like these audio tapes might produced using material that is prone to decay out of chemical and environmental context. So you might be able to digitize it once, but then it's gone. Yeah. So you will not able to reproduce it in the future. So the goal of digitization now becomes the protection of the collection itself, or the core information that is that is inside all of the media the objects are made of. So here it is maybe in the future not about the original object, but of the content that was inside that object. So you have to document that process and maybe document transparently that you cannot keep the original forever because of decay, and you cannot do restoration for everything, because it's just you don't have the resources. Nobody has the resources for all of that. So you have to carefully choose in that part as well. So the focus here is digital access, digital preservation, but mostly safeguarding your collection. Yeah. Okay. When it comes to labels and concepts, concepts like or labels like an archive, library, and museum, they are not protected labels. Everybody could have an archive, or a library or a definition. So everybody can name their website archive of something. There is no legal protection of these labels. But what is, of course, there are rules and regulations for how to take care of cultural heritage, as I mentioned before. So there is the rule for the National Archive in Finland, or the National Archive in Germany, or other, or the meaningfulness of archives in general for preserving and transparently document the governmental or the government or the government's decision to the people. That is, but archive is a very fragile label, so be careful what you are speaking when you use this word. And the same goes through a digital archive. I have here two examples of the major platforms in Europe: the Europeana on the European level, and the German Digital Library, that is basically the Europeana for Germany, both collecting images or files, different files and information about digital or cultural heritage collections. But these platforms are not an archive, because they are just platforms that provide access to information about collections, about institutions, about objects. They give access to files that you can use and reuse. But when there is, or putting an image to Europeana or to the German Digital Library, don't preserve the object that is behind that. Yes. So when you have when we speak about a digital archive, we have very carefully to think about, okay, what do we mean in our context when we mean a digital archive? do we mean access to information regarding digital cultural heritage collection and resources and context information? Or do we really mean that we have to take care of digital objects in an archival sense for long-time access and preserve the long-term access and usability? When we have a digital archive, you might have a focus on presentation and access to digital files, as I mentioned before. And here's another example, the Internet Archive, and here some audio files that are collected. But here's the focus on, I think, on digital access. You have in your project, you probably will have the focus on research of a specific topic that you might have. You will, as mentioned before, produce your own research data by digitization and maybe other forms of research questions that you might ask. And then you have the focus maybe on the collecting and preserving of born digital and or digitized content, including the context information. Some broadcasting corporations like the television, the main television stations in Germany, government-owned or public services, public broadcasting corporations, they have collections and they have born digital and digitized content, they have it in their system. They use it live and they use it in long term. We have digital preservation. Digital preservation. And when we think about digital preservation, what do we mean? We mean, as I mentioned, you have to carefully think what information when you digitize objects, what information should be available in the digital format. And you have to choose because when you have a scanner, you produce images. When you have a 3D scanner, you produce a cloud of points and so forth. So you have to carefully choose. And here's an example of a picture of a certain book page, an old book page. And it's all the same picture, but you have the scanned in 25-bit color image version, an 8-bit grayscale, and a 1-bit black and white picture. But what is the significant properties of the digital object? You know, what do you really need in terms of information? And so that goes to sustainability as well. It's just one of many aspects that you have to carefully choose what information do you really need for your purposes, what is for use and reuse from a scientific or from a user point of view, and what information do you need in terms of safeguarding your collection in the long term when it comes to really digital cultural heritage. When we think about digital preservation, then of course everything we touch goes to digital. Yes, maybe you know the king, the Greek king Midas. Everything he touched turns to gold. Nowadays, everything we touch turn to digital information. So everything files. They are saved on digital storage medium. Yes, as we produce, they are naturally saved on whatever medium there is. So just to save a file is not preservation, of course, and just a backup is just a form of securing your digital content for the now and maybe a short future. But it is just that it is not necessarily part of digital preservation. Yeah. especially when it comes to just files for access and files for use, then it is a different field than protecting the digital cultural heritage. But there are certain strategies for digital preservation, like format migration, emulation of of operating systems and so forth, and of course refreshing the storage medium. As we all know, when we have a server has a life expectancy of 7 years maybe. When you are very poor, you have to run it 10 years, but then you are going to have a serious IT security risk, I guess. And in the meantime, you refresh every HD or storage medium that there is. So in essence, every 7 to maybe 10 years, you rebuild your digital archive or your digital collection completely from an IT infrastructural point of view. And that's a given at the moment. You can, of course, use different formats, hot storage like servers or cold storage like tapes, but and it goes for choosing different options for the environment and energy consumption, but you have to have these kind of infrastructures in the first place to use them, and that isn't easy, or so easy as one might think. Okay, when it comes to digital preservation, as well as I mentioned before, other parts, they are developed over the last couple of decades. There are certain communities that they thought about digital preservation very hardly, and you have now this reference model for an open archival information system, and that's an international standard. That is the reference here is the newest version that will become the new standard in the near future. So you can when you are able to build your own system, or you have to build your own system, you can take a look at this and try to implement these functional entities and the concepts that are established in that field from a community that is globally operating. In every year there is a conference, the International Conference on Digital Preservation. It is a very thought through a model that is there. And if you see in the picture, I hope you can see that in the middle, the archival storage is just one of many aspects and of the whole model that you have to think about. It is about data management. It is about preservation planning for preservation actions, the emulation thing, the transformation, the migration thing, and so forth. So storage is just one part. It's an essential part, of course, but it's just one part of what it is that is what digital preservation should be in total. Okay. When you think about digital preservation, then of course the content that is you have to carefully select the content, and that goes to the point of what to digitize and what not to digitize. Yes. You need technical infrastructure, but in essence, you need much more. You need an organization that manages and provides these infrastructures, that give you the task and the money and the resources to do so. That you have to have a legal background in order to do that. If you're not allowed to do certain tasks like digitization, certain assets because of laws that forbid them, or because of data protection and so forth. Yeah, you know, then you have to try. You have to think about industrial standards. There is just at the moment there is just one company that provides professional tapes for tape libraries to store data on cold storage. Just one. Yes, to just make it clear, you know, on what thin of crust we are stepping at. Yes, and other points. But if you are going to really go in or take on the digital preservation, then it is essential that you implementing standards like the reference model that I mentioned, or other international standards for description, for digitization of cultural heritage, and so forth, in order to comply to other systems and to have to keep stuff alive, so to speak. And when we think about cultural heritage itself, we might be sorted a bit in the surveys from Eva. In general, here is an example of the federal state I'm working for, you know, Brandenburg, and you have about 80 archives, municipal-owned archives, 140 libraries, 150 museums, plus 400 non-profit organizations run by volunteers that they have collections of cultural heritage. So about 750 institutions. But the thing is, it is the responsibility of these institutions to take care of the cultural heritage, no matter in what form, in analog or digital form. So if you would shift that into a central a corporate body that provides a digital preservation solution, and they just you have to change of custody for the digital content, you know, you destroy the community that you need for sustainability. Sorry, because yes, in essence, digital preservation is a form of you need a community to do so, because it is not just about the resource or not just about an infrastructure. It's about the community that that takes care of that. So, in essence, how to take care of digital cultural heritage with sustainable methods. It is about to be clear on available resources. You know, now what you have to resources now and what you have resources for the foreseeable future. And because it's such a huge challenge for every institution, small or large, and the appraisal of content is a crucial and an essential part of that. You have to very carefully think what to declare cultural heritage. You have to very carefully think about what and in what form you might transform into a digital form if it's not digital born. And in that kind or in that perspective, just a basic tasks like cataloging are more essential than ever, because you in a sense you will need these informations in order to give that or have that information as basis informations for the digital preservation processes. You know, we are. At the moment, we are here at our university think about an automated preservation solution for institutions that have informations on platforms like not like the German Digital Library, but platforms with separate contents in a multi-client way that every client, every institution can have responsible of their own collections, and select and export that data and combine that with the raw or the master digitized files in order to create an archival material and bring it into an archival system. If available, using collaborative systems or infrastructures is key. The thing is that the most informations don't have the resources to create their own digital archive in a sense of digital preservation. But most of them are unable to reach collaborative systems as well. We are basically at the moment a bit screwed in that perspective, because many of cultural heritage and many of our digital cultural heritage assets will be prone to decay or digital decay, or will be lost in the near future, because we don't, or we are unable to protect them just out of resources. My conclusion, it is essential that we have a common understanding of terms and concepts within our projects or within our field of work, because resources are limited. We cannot preserve everything. So and the thing is, the technology is just a tool, but we have to take care of the digital cultural heritage constantly, or it will be lost for sure. And as I mentioned before, sustainability is not achieved by using technology, but by building communities that care, because they are the ones who say we need resources from our government or from other forms in order to do our job. When they are gone, the content is gone. So that's my conclusion of the day, so to speak. Thank you very much for your attention, and here my contact information. So
thank you so much. Very, very interesting presentation and very valuable points. Now, before I will open the floor for this wider panel discussion, let's have couple of questions to Ulf first. So again, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand or also write your questions to the chat. So, and again, I think that I have many questions, but I I try to limit myself to one question here. Yeah, so many very interesting points, and I think that one of the interesting things that I started to think that of course we are now living in a very uncertain world, and often, even though in an archive or in a library where we are digitizing and trying to preserve either cultural heritage or digital cultural heritage, there can be some external threats to these practices as well. Of course, if we talk about like tangible cultural heritage, there can be floods and earthquakes, fire and so on, that are of course posing a threat. And then if we are talking about digital cultural heritage, there can be IT security risks that you already mentioned, and wars even, like for instance, but at the same time, it is interesting how digitization of cultural heritage, for instance, in Ukraine, has been one way to try to save some of those cultural heritage that is currently in Ukraine. So you also pointed out this kind of like digitization as a protection as well. So there are these aspects as well. But if I continue thinking about these threats, in our last session in the lecture series on gender, one of the speakers pointed out the Trump's administration removing some data and these kinds of like even, you know, political threats as well. And but what I really enjoyed in your talk was that how you emphasize this, how when we digitize, we are transforming the tangible cultural heritage into digital, and it's not the same thing, and that's something that we need to pay attention to. And I think that with the introduction of artificial intelligence and all this possibility to generate any kinds of new types of images and produce digital data that even might look like authentic, old dated photograph or something like that. So and I really like the way you emphasize the trustworthiness of digital cultural heritage. So thinking about all these threats, I'm sorry to bring them here too, although I know that you're all reading the news, but do you think that that somehow introducing large language models and artificial intelligence poses us as practitioners of digital cultural heritage additional requirement to think really thoroughly about this trustworthiness and what it means when we digitize things, and what is the authenticity in digital realm? So
yeah. So yeah, many levels. Just one thing about the mentioned risk management. You know, the risk management is one level of when you think about what content to digitize. And then risk management is one of these aspects that you take into account. So that can be one level to make decisions to preserve a certain collection or a certain type of cultural heritage objects. And even intangible cultural heritage is in most forms may put in some tangible form because you recorded voices, you recorded a festivity or whatever, you know. So it's hard to in our nowadays world, even intangible cultural heritage becomes tangible in some forms and levels. So that's one way. The other thing is when we think about trustworthiness, and that's my main focus when I do my work and I do consultation, that the institutions have to focus on their core task, and their core task is preserving that trustworthiness for their collection in order to have a meaningful offering, you know, to have a really meaningful or provide meaningful use. And when you think about AI, AI can be on some levels a tool for us for do handwritten recognition, to do recognition of certain structures and recognition of entities within our collections when they are in a digitized form. So that is one part for access and use and research of our own collection to go the digital way in order to implement AI tools and ways in order to can better work with the information that is provided inside our collections, but that necessarily do anything about the digital or the preservation of our originals. So it's for one thing, it is a tool, and another thing is that we have to take care, and that is why I think the communities are so important. We have to have a community that takes care and that will shield our own information and shield that cultural heritage from attacks from within and from outside. So we have a community and an understanding, and we have maybe non-profit ways or collaborative ways in order to do our tasks, because then it isn't that easy. It is to threatening a single person or a single institution is rather easy. To threaten a whole community is a bigger task. You can try that as we see it now, but it is much harder. When you have a community, then you can fight for it on a broader, in a broader way, and you need them in order to secure resources. For example, for the preservation task. I see you have raised your hand, Hannu.
Yes, yeah, Hannu, please. And then there is a question on chat after you. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if this goes too far, but I was thinking about, because it's always the communities that recognize something as important to transfer to future generations, and of course digitization is one aspect of preservation, but then we have also born digital content and how to recognize that as cultural heritage, and it's even more fragile in the sense that it's
Exactly.
disappearing all the time, and especially in small communities there might be a lot of also practices around the content, not only the content but actually those practices that are part of the heritage, and this goes a little bit beyond the discussion, but I think it's also highly important.
Yeah, the thing is, when you think about digital-born content, then sometimes before you can, or it is historically in order to make the appraisal, because of the fragility of the digital nature of it. Sometimes, and that is part of charters and some forms of standards, and so for the area of digital preservation, that there is an acknowledgement that sometimes a community might save certain collections or certain items and so forth, before they can be really appraised in a historical, cultural, or heritage sense. Because when you don't do that, they are just gone within 5 years, 10 years time or so. Yeah. So that is very tricky in the moment, but sometimes it is hard to, you cannot collect everything, because even then you have to carefully select things, because we just have scarce resources. So it's a dilemma in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is acknowledged of the preservation community that sometimes you have to keep in collections that you have to appraise at a later date, in a way, and that is a bit tricky, but it is the way we can. It's only you can handle it sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, but it's not an ideal situation, but that's one aspect of digitality at the moment.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. And now we have one question in the chat, and after that I will open this discussion so that I will invite Evangelia to join us, and you can also prepare questions for both of the speakers. But now first, there is a question in the chat. Milud Puhenune is asking about the role of UNESCO in Gaza to stop the destruction of tangible heritage in Gaza, and if there is a knowledge where is UNESCO, if it's following the war and in Gaza, and what is kind of like going on there. So do you know?
I seriously, because I don't work for UNESCO, it just quote for obvious reasons central definitions or some concepts and formats. But I'm sure they try to the best of their abilities to keep track on the things that are going down right now, and it was in the past, and now it is becoming even more problematic to keep anything in place or keep anything intact in that region, because there is a full-blown war, and they are not going to save anything. You know, they just destroy everything at the moment, and that's so sad. And that holds true for different regions of the world at the moment. So we are in a tragic situation. I know that that there are some initiatives trying to aid every aspects for the people, and of course for cultural heritage as well. But at the moment, it is problematic because it is a dire situation in the total sense. So I don't know if there are actually programs, or if there are programs or initiatives, if they have any chance to do anything on the ground at the moment, because the situation is so dire at the moment. So that's very hard to say. But I don't work for it, so sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now I have some questions prepared for both of you, but I also invite, if any of the audiences, if you have any questions, please just jump in and yeah. But first, yeah, thank you so much. I think that they were both of your presentations were really into point and discussing these different aspects of sustainability within digital cultural heritage. But I would now like to ask you both, Ulf and Evangelia, so in your opinion, do you think that is there a way to somehow reach a balance between both kind of like continued preservation of digital cultural heritage and simultaneously meeting the demands of green computing and kind of ecological needs? Or is this totally impossible, which I hope is not, but you know, yeah, so this is a question. And if you think that there are ways to reach a balance here, do you think that there would be some kind of like infrastructural, practice related, or other kinds of choices that that can be taken here in order to do this? So what kinds of thoughts do you have in relation to this? I don't know who wants to start.
Eva, would you like to start from your study point of view, or?
Of course, yes. Thank you. To be honest, right now I see quite many paradoxes working one against each other. So on the one hand, as I tried to portray in the beginning of my presentation, we have intensifying climate change phenomena that are posing all these risks to climate heritage, and we are in an attempt to preserve this cultural heritage for future generations. We are trying to digitalize everything, or as many as we can preserve or rescue, with finding ourselves within this negative feedback loop. And essentially, I'm asking myself, what's the point, you know, of trying to digitally preserve as much cultural heritage as we can if future generations are essentially inhabiting an unlivable planet? Is it, you know, is it the cultural heritage that the first thing that they'll have in mind? I mean, this is my, again, my environmental sciences perspective or glasses on. But I personally, I do find it quite tricky to have, we have a Greek saying, to have the pie as a whole and the dog to be well fed. You cannot really combine both. There need to be, definitely there need to be stricken a fine balance. But from my perspective, the finite resources reality of the planet, it's not going to change.